You're so lucky, my wife scoffed before walking out on me and the kids. A week later, she returned like nothing happened, but everything had changed, including me. I, 43M, do my best to provide for my wife, 38F, our two kids, ages 3 and 5, and my mother-in-law. I like to think I'm doing a decent job. Over the years, I've worked hard to improve our family's financial stability. While earning my second bachelor's degree, I juggled two full-time jobs and supported my wife through her own education. She completed a degree in a well-paying healthcare field, $60K–$70K per year, with strong job security. However, after having our two children, she decided to put her career on hold and become a stay-at-home mom. At first, it was challenging, especially as I was still finishing my master's degree. But after completing it, my career advanced, and once our youngest turned 3, we were finally in a more stable financial position. We're not wealthy, but for a single-income household, we do reasonably well, earning around $150,000 annually plus bonuses. Over the past year, my wife has found things overwhelming, so despite now working 75% from home, I budgeted for a daytime nanny to help her with one child while the other is at school. My day typically starts between 5:30 and 6 a.m. I prepare the house for the day, get our oldest ready for school, make breakfast, plan my schedule, and handle school drop-off. I return home in time to let the nanny in at 8 a.m. My current work responsibilities have me fully remote for the next 2 months, which is convenient, but I'm constantly in meetings since I manage global teams and oversee industry projects. Over the past month and a half, I've noticed something. Despite saying that staying at home is stressful, my wife doesn't start her day until around 10 a.m. After observing this for a week, I asked both my mother-in-law and the nanny if this was normal, and they both confirmed that it was. Sometimes she starts earlier, sometimes later. Most days, she wakes up, cooks, and then spends time scrolling on her phone or online shopping. And that's where my frustration begins. I am glad I am able to provide her that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I get the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, the fact that I probably am a shitty husband, but for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the house's finances. She claimed she was too busy to do so. Pay all the household bills, I pay my own personal bills, I pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances/cars/pets/ etc. And I also help pay for my MIL's medical bills and car note. But apparently my life is on easy streak compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day, but she had it worse cause I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, etc., but when I reminded her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My MIL has brought me aside and stated she's noticed a change in both myself and my wife. I have a greater attachment to my kids and hell, I've hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I am in emotional survival mode as I'm one step from moving up the career ladder and one step away from finding love and comfort from the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I'm sure the so-called manly men of Reddit will call me a simp, but I'm not a machine. I just want to feel appreciated and loved by someone I prioritize, aside from my kids. And I know I'll also hear from stay-at-home moms, which is fine. I was raised by a single mother, so I understand how tough it can be. But with the help of her mom and a nanny Monday through Friday, while only caring for one toddler since our other child is in school, can anyone honestly say my wife is experiencing the typical Psalm workload? None of my single-parent friends or colleagues would say she is. I'm sure plenty of self-righteous Redditors will dismiss this as some poorly written fanfiction, but this is my reality. TLDR. It feels like my wife has completely checked out of our marriage. At this point, we're just roommates, though she still enjoys the benefits of being married. I'm not expecting constant affection or unlimited freedom, I just want to hear that I'm doing a good job, to receive a little emotional support, even something as simple as a hug. But I guess, as the man who supposedly ruined her life, I deserve to be ignored. Additional context. I've never cheated. Yes, I work in an industry with a high percentage of female colleagues, but I'm completely transparent. My wife knows my coworkers' names, my schedule, and even has access to my work agenda and emails if she ever wanted to check. That said, she still doesn't actually know what I do for a living at this point. Both our families, hers and mine, have encouraged her to seek therapy, but she either refuses or avoids the conversation altogether. Aside from my coming from a single-mother household purse, my biological dad was present in my life. She has had both parents in a reportedly monogamous marriage for over 40 years. I have tried to talk to her about everything and my own feelings, but again, one-upmanship tends to be the trend here. When someone asked what I get out of this marriage, aside from my 2 beautiful kids, I realized I've been asking myself the same question. Our sex life has been almost non-existent since last year. I've told myself it could be due to depression or something else she's going through. Or maybe I'm just not attractive enough or not good in bed because of my health conditions. I'm not some model husband, but I know that temptation and opportunity exist. Still, I've never given in, because, as cliché as it sounds, I truly love my wife and only want to be with her. To be fair, I don't want to make it seem like she does nothing. When she cooks, she prepares meals for everyone in the house, me, the kids, my MIL, and even the nanny. Besides breakfast, she also makes all our meals and snacks. I usually fast until lunch, and our oldest eats a small breakfast as a backup in case they don't like what's served at school. She also does the laundry for both kids and herself, though she rarely folds or puts it away. I handle my own laundry, and my work clothes go to the dry cleaner. She keeps track of what we need for groceries, but once she makes the list, I'm the one who either shops for everything or arranges deliveries. As for cleaning, she takes care of the bathrooms and does about 50% of the housework, while the rest is split between my MIL, me, and sometimes the nanny if she's feeling extra helpful. Before we hired a nanny, my MIL was my wife's primary support. However, when she developed unexpected medical issues, I decided to hire a nanny to help both of them, especially on days when my MIL is undergoing treatments and recovering. Update. Not sure if anyone would read this, but thank you for those who have reached out and chit-chatted. While I know I've kept my newfound friends here updated, I figured I'd just update my post and keep it short. I showed my wife my post the following weekend and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. Nothing much else to say other than thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. Just need to add, this post got bigger than I expected from a venting post, but I've responded to a few comments. Nonetheless, thank you for the comments and DMs, and more so for the offers to let me ruin your life, ha. It's been the highlight of my day/night as I sit here drinking with my dog while everyone else is asleep. It feels depressingly sad that I feel that I have to turn to random internet strangers for some sort of validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. Update. I wanted to give an update to those who have checked in through DMs and comments. Thank you for your kindness. Apologies in advance for the long post. It's ironic, and maybe a bit of a coincidence, that I'm writing this follow-up in May, which is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist right now. I'm sorry if this isn't the dramatic ending or relationship downfall some people were expecting. To sum it up, my wife left. Then she came back like nothing happened. She made everything about herself. Nothing has changed. I'm still struggling mentally, knowing things likely never will, while trying to hold it together for our kids. Lots of takeout lately. The day after she left, she tried to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally, I was against it, and thankfully, so was her entire family, including her sister. It wasn't fair to uproot our kids and move them into a house that isn't theirs, especially when it would put additional financial and housing stress on her family. She doesn't work, and her sister's family, husband and 3 kids, already live with their dad in their childhood home. After being gone for just over a week, she apparently decided she had cooled off enough and casually walked back in with her bags, as if she had just returned from a Target run. She came straight into my office while I was in the middle of a conference call and just stood there, glaring at me. Since it's a busy time of the quarter for us, I couldn't just drop everything. I guess that didn't sit well with her, because the moment I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling about how I don't care about her or her well-being. At that moment, all I could do was shake my head. My mother-in-law heard the commotion and stepped in, pulling my wife away and telling her not to bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest occupied on the other side of the house. That night after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink as I have been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked. We argued. We cried. We drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally, it was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy MY and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. That morning, my heart and mind shattered. I've been spiraling ever since. This past week, I made another attempt to reconcile, to sit down and talk things out, but instead of a conversation, it turned into yet another shouting match when I tried to express the stress and anxieties weighing on me from both life and work. Wife, do you even realize how hard this is for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. So when it comes to my happiness, my stress, my needs, basically my overall well-being, what, I'm just supposed to suck it up and get over it. Wife, we all have our own problems. You need to figure yours out and move on. I don't recognize the woman I live with anymore. She's not the person I married, the one I vowed to build a life with and raise our kids together. Since that argument, I've kept my distance. I've been sleeping in my office, on the couch, or in my kids' beds after putting them to sleep. But nothing about her routine has changed. She still starts her day at 10 a.m., spends hours on her phone chatting with mom groups, and only engages with the kids while cooking, leaving the rest of their care to my mother-in-law and the nanny. Nothing has changed. And I doubt anything ever will. The sad truth is, even if we got divorced, I don't think it would feel any different. When she left, my days were pretty much the same. The only real difference was a little more takeout than usual. But my biggest fear isn't losing her, it's losing my kids. So, like many other men, and some women, I've spoken to here, I'll just keep smiling and suffering in silence. First off, thank you to everyone who reached out through comments and DMs. I appreciate it. Some context and clarification since my original post was emotionally charged, written right after yet another argument. After both of our kids were born, their pediatrician's office had my wife complete postpartum depression screening forms. Both times, her scores were high, and she was strongly encouraged to see a therapist. With our second child, her scores were even worse. I tried to get her the help she needed, but she refused. That's when my mother-in-law and the nanny stepped in to provide support. I know what people might think, but this is one of the reasons I haven't been able to just walk away and file for divorce. I'm not ready to give up on the life we built together. Not yet. Also, I know silently suffering in the near and long run of our kids' future will not add to a healthy atmosphere, but neither would a bitter and hate-filled divorce. I know some have compared it to the ripping off a bandage, saying it'll hurt at first but that pain goes away, but I'd rather try to spare my kids thinking that their parents ended up hating each other because of them or something along those lines. I've told a few PPL I talked to in DM since my last post, a little more insight on my personal life. Prior to my promotion I was a PM managing teams and budgets, so out of habit I plan for a lot of what-ifs. That being said, I made a number of contingency plans if sadly things went south. So, yes, I have talked to a lawyer, 3 actually. Know our rights and what each of us are entitled to. Have a draft settlement created and on hold until I feel I need to use it. I know what I want and am willing to offer more than what is fair for our kids' well-being, but also have a plan if we end up going to court. It's 100% on me that I'm suffering in silence, but I'm too stubborn to just give up, so while I am venting, I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I endure it to keep the norm our kids know, ensure my MIL's treatments go uninterrupted, and of course the hope my wife would finally be open to give therapy a shot and climb together to a better place. Thank you all again. Update. I'm done. At our family Father's Day dinner, in front of both our therapist and everyone else, my wife said I don't do anything and that I'm worthless. She got served. Now she's mad. She's trying to act like the perfect wife, but I'm just waiting things out while taking care of my family, our kids, my mom, and my mother-in-law. Oh well, guess I'll just be the one ruining everyone's lives now. Clearing up some misconceptions. I did not earn 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's while working 2 jobs at the same time, as some people seem to believe. Here's how it actually happened. Bachelor's number 1, graduated in the early 2000s. Bachelor's number 2, earned years later through an online program, taking just 2 classes per semester. During this time, I worked 2 full-time jobs. Job number 1, a hospital job with a 36-48-hour rotating schedule. Job number 2, a big box retail store, working 32 to 40 hours a week, spread across all 7 days. I worked both jobs to pay for not only my own tuition but also my wife's, since she decided to go back to school before we had kids. Once I finished my second bachelor's degree and transitioned into my current industry, I was finally able to work just 1 job and pursue my master's. So no, I didn't complete 3 degrees all at once, and I'm honestly surprised I even have to explain this. Working 2 jobs while going to school isn't exactly unheard of, or at least, I didn't think it was. As for my wife's job situation, she chooses not to work. Technically, she does have a job, it's just to such a minimal extent that even we forget she has one. To put it into perspective, she's worked exactly 1 8-hour shift in the last 4 to 5 months. Her job operates under a flex PRN model, meaning she gets a list of available shifts and can pick up work whenever she wants. Her manager is extremely supportive and gives her full control over when, or if she works. But despite having the ability to work more, she only does the bare minimum to maintain her license, then complains to our family that her career is on hold for one reason or another. The reality? She has every opportunity to return to work if she wanted to. She's surrounded by a strong, supportive circle. Our family is willing to help. Her job accommodates her completely. I work from home. We hired a nanny. My mother-in-law moved in to help. Her schedule is as flexible as it gets. Despite all of that, here we are. I am and have been in therapy for myself already. Aside from what I deal with at home, my work can be very debilitating in regard to my mental health as well as physical at times. Since I can't find the support I need mentally and physically at home with my wife, I've opted to attend therapy rather than find comfort with someone outside of the home or at the bottom of a bottle. I've tried to express this to my wife, and as mentioned in my previous post, she has a habit of one-upping me, and here we are. My in-laws are still married. Given the circumstances in our home, my MIL moved in to help out my wife, while my SIL and her family moved back into their parents' house due to their own reasons. SIL and her family can save money while getting back on their feet, and my wife and I benefit from MIL's help, and we can keep a closer eye on her while she undergoes bi-monthly treatments. My wife, by means of questionnaires, is highly suspected to have PPD alongside with a history of symptomatic OCD, ADHD, amongst other ailments that over the years she refused to get evaluated for or refused to accept results given. I knew what I was getting into, and I love and accepted my wife for these flaws as she did mine at the time. Spare me your "I don't feel sorry for you" or pity. I am like every other man who fell in love and wanted to give my person the best of me and the world I can offer, but again, here we are. There are plenty of so-called manly men and red pill followers out there saying I'm simping for my wife. While I respect differing opinions, let me be clear, if this situation only affected me, I would have left a long time ago. A comment from a fellow Redditor stuck with me: I am the kind of person that will take a bullet for his kids. Maybe it was meant in a different context, but for me, protecting my children, both physically and mentally, comes first. If that means taking the proverbial bullet by enduring this situation, then so be it. I'd like to believe that other fathers would step up to protect their children the same way. That's why I put up with as much as I did. For the time being, I'd rather be the one my wife unloads her frustration on than have my kids bear the brunt of it. Thank you, and moving forward, I truly appreciate everyone who took the time to comment, check in, and even become Reddit pen pals throughout this journey. It's surreal how far this situation has spread, across different subreddits, platforms, and even YouTube. Whether you support me, hate me, or think this is all fake, I'm grateful for the constructive discussions and the people who have reached out. Rest assured, my kids and I are going to be just fine moving forward. The end of an era. This update will be shorter than some expected because, honestly, there isn't much left to say, except to satisfy the curiosity of those who wanted an "I told you so" moment. After a strong push from our families via an unofficial intervention, my wife and I finally attempted marriage counseling. And, as many of you probably guessed, it went about as well as you'd expect. Blame, tears, regrets, gaslighting. Topped off with the usual "I ruined her life." Except this time, she wasn't saying it to Reddit or her mom groups, it was in front of a licensed therapist. In the end, everything the therapist suggested went in one ear and out the other because it challenged the status quo she's comfortable with. One moment from that session stuck with me. The therapist asked her to recall the last time she truly felt happy. Her response? 12 years ago. To put that into perspective, 12 years ago, she was still in her 20s. She was childless. She was living with her ex. Life was drastically different. Now, I know it's petty of me, but if that was the last time she was truly happy, then maybe she should go back to it. Especially since, from what I know, her ex is still in the same apartment, working the same job, and in the exact same place in life as he was 12 years ago. If that's the kind of life she wants, fine, I won't judge. But at 40 with kids, going clubbing 3 to 4 nights a week is not my idea of a life anymore. And more importantly, I don't want my kids around a mother, and her crowd, who drowns themselves in White Claws. For those wondering, no, she hasn't physically cheated, at least, not that I know of. I can't say for sure if there was any emotional cheating, if that's even the right term. After that therapy session, I did check her phone records and didn't find anything suspicious. But honestly, I didn't bother digging through her social media apps like Instagram or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday Funday includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year, as expected, not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a barbecue and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in. Get up. Cook. Phone. Shop. Attempt to play with kids. Phone. During said family barbecue my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents and sister's family, my mother, our kids, admittingly it was a great spread, nothing extravagant but just a great meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway, I could have gone instead." At that moment I was red and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My MIL broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my MIL confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction and with her hand pointing at me said, "As if another woman would want a man like him? Just look at you," while the room sat silent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras, but when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails. Checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had, and now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home, reminder to people I had no choice but to be there because I work from home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her? Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress, I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt. But she's made many attempts, and historically we fall back to where we've been. For those wondering, I'm aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I've always covered and will continue to cover all their expenses, insurance, tuition. Both kids will be in private school this fall, medical bills, and everything else they need. My mother-in-law has been an incredible support system, giving me strength throughout this process, much like my own mother. Honestly, she's the kind of mother and wife I had hoped my wife would be for our family. Out of respect for her and in line with my mom's wishes, I'll continue to help her financially during her cancer treatments if needed. Some people think I should cut ties with her family completely, but having first-hand experience with the strain cancer puts on a family, both personally and professionally, I just can't do that. As for the divorce, I'm ready to fight if necessary, but I'd rather just get through it with minimal issues. And for anyone thinking my wife is about to cash in on some sweet alimony, let me be clear. We live in a state that doesn't typically enforce alimony. She has the ability to work immediately, she just chooses not to. To avoid unnecessary drama, I'll cover her insurance and bills until either the divorce is finalized or she gets a full-time job. That's about it. I'm done. Now, I'm just waiting for everything to be finalized. I know some people might have expected a wild, dramatic story, but this is just real life. Messy, frustrating, and not as exciting as some might have hoped. Not sure if I'll post another update once it's officially over, but given how slow these things can go, it could be a few months, depending on whether things get messy or not. Update. Even though I try not to care anymore, I'd be lying if I said I didn't still feel something about all of this. I want to thank everyone who has reached out, left comments, or even become Reddit pen pals throughout this whole journey. It took me a while to update because my priority has been adjusting to my new life, cutting ties with the past and moving forward for my kids, family, and work. But for those who were curious, here's an update. TLDR, divorce is finalized. She took the money and seems to have spent almost all of it. The kids are doing well. My MIL is responding well to treatment. I got a promotion, a salary increase, and a new home to start fresh in the new year. Meanwhile, my ex has been working overtime, taking household items from my house, and combining incomes with her boyfriend, yet they still make about a quarter of what I do in a month. Yes, shameless flex, don't judge me. As for me, I'm moving on. I have no interest in romance right now, my focus is on my kids. The update. Since my last post, I've been painted as every toxic husband stereotype imaginable by our social circles, with Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram running wild with their narratives. As much as I've rolled my eyes at those "you know my name but not my story" posts, I kind of get it now. But honestly, those strangers and distant friends or family can think whatever they want. At the end of the day, if my kids are happy, healthy, and thriving in my so-called toxic household, that's all that matters. The important part, the divorce is done. I have majority custody. My ex is now trying to play the role of a present mother whenever her schedule allows, but at this point, it's too little too late. My MIL is still responding well to her treatments, and my SIL has stepped in to help with her care, filling the role my ex was supposed to. And with that, I'm closing this chapter and looking ahead. Post-divorce, I recently moved homes and jobs and accepted the next step forward career-wise, which my company has been kind enough to slowly transition me into the role as leadership understands what I am going through at home. Interestingly, it's amazing how common my story is amongst my colleagues and network. I am sad/happy to say I am now one of the newer members of the Fellowship of Divorce Directors and Execs. As sad as it may sound, it is nice to know that many understand and are willing to offer a high degree of support, advice, assistance, and guidance as needed. The divorce itself was quick, but it still had its sad and angry moments, and many of the people in my camp think my ex got away with robbery. But the fact that I was awarded majority custody and per agreement have our kids almost every day and know they're safe under my roof is worth every cent. I didn't really care how my ex handled mediation as long as she agreed to the terms, but the biggest slap in the face was her decision to have her boyfriend advise her throughout the process. According to her, his opinion is more important than any lawyer who isn't looking out for my best interest. By this point, the holidays were approaching, and I didn't want this mess disrupting things for our kids and family. While I was fully prepared to go to court, my ex was more concerned about protecting her payout, and I just wanted to be done with it all. I won't get into all the details, but the agreement was straightforward. I would get majority custody and cover all expenses for our kids, and in exchange, she'd get the lump sum she wanted, with no child support obligations on her end. She kept all her personal belongings, her car, bags, clothes, jewelry, and I had to sell our home, split the profits, and cover the taxes. She also walked away with almost all our joint bank accounts after legal fees. And if that wasn't enough, she even tried to argue for alimony, which she didn't get. Just a PSA, Facebook groups aren't a substitute for actual legal advice. Reality sets in. At my core, I'm a simple man. All I ever wanted was to get married, have a family, and provide for them. Somehow, I ended up in a position where my spouse had the luxury of choosing whether she wanted to work or not, without worrying about anything outside of our family. How things unraveled like this, I can't say for sure. I'll admit I was probably oblivious to a lot of things, and maybe some of this is on me. As some people have pointed out, maybe I brought this onto myself. Post-settlement, I ended up downsizing and closed on a smaller but spacious house for the three of us and our dog, with a separate generational suite in our backyard for my MIL to stay as she wished to stay involved in our kids' care regardless of if I was married to her daughter or not. Honestly, I made sure that addition to the home was available for her because I hoped she would be able and open to help until the kids were a little bit older. For what it's worth, it seems my ex found her happiness. Luxury trips in a short time frame she wanted, her BF and her move to a bigger place to stay, luxury high-rise studio but still no place for our kids to stay, her BF got his dream car, and a long list of expenses and shopping sprees that kind of benefited our kids if at all in any way sprinkled in her social media accounts. She's rocking Cartier while our kids are sporting Carters. My ex came to visit our cute little house, to visit our kids and MIL, and complimented me on my choice of home and that I was able to keep up the status quo of our home without her. I'm sure many will see the irony in this. I'm not entirely sure her motive or if I'm just reading too deep into it, but she dropped lines about how stressful and expensive their living expenses, rent, utilities, cell/internet service, and insurance, or groceries are now, and how surprised it costs to feed her, her BF, and whoever the hell else comes to their home. I'm not sure why, but she initially was under the impression the generational suite was meant for her use when she has the time and wants to co-parent. She is even more tired and struggling with her schedule now because she works a total of 48 hours a week and forced to work overtime at times, and her BF works, but I didn't dig or care about the details. But I do care that I think she thinks I don't notice that she takes some of our usual household staples and items with her before she left. Mainly bottles of soap she always bought for our home, Sonicare replacement brush heads and other toiletries, a new unopened bottle of the Mountain Valley water from the fridge when she visits, and I may be reading too deep into something again, but sometimes I find some of the Instax pics from the fridge missing. Usually it's just of the kids or MIL and the kids, but a few were of the 4 of us in the past. Although her White Claw stash seems to take priority over keeping their home stocked with 2-ply toilet paper, I try to be as accommodating as possible when it comes to her involvement with our kids. She's welcome to stop by our home whenever she can, though that's rare, and I keep her updated about their activities. Since I primarily work from home, I'm always around when she does decide to show up. It was nice to see her make it to our youngest's first Christmas school assembly, where our eldest had speaking roles in the play before she had to leave for work. Later that week, I took the kids to visit her at the hospital on Christmas Day, bringing her a plate of food since she had to work through the holiday. I won't lie, standing there, feeling the stares and hearing the whispers of her coworkers while I waited for the kids to hand over their presents and wish her a Merry Christmas wasn't easy. She was trying to be welcoming, but all I could do was offer a simple Merry Christmas and wave goodbye from a distance as we left. This Christmas, despite all the blessings I have to be grateful for, felt strangely empty. On New Year's Eve, I went full Pinterest dad mode, trying to make the night as fun as possible for the kids. I set up an early countdown at 9 p.m. with a balloon drop in the living room and lit fireworks as soon as the sun set. On a lighter note, I've rediscovered my love for cooking, something I used to do all the time when I was a bachelor living with roommates. Of course, now I have the added challenge of a 4- and 6-year-old who believe they're mini versions of Gordon Ramsay and insist they can provide Michelin star sous chef assistance. Once the kids were tucked in and asleep, I rang in the new year with my dog and a drink. Scrolling through my phone, with fireworks crackling in the distance, I saw post after post of my ex living her best life, snap after snap of her new reality. So, as 2024 begins, here's where I stand. Self-esteem, nearly gone. Confidence, hanging by a thread. Ability to trust anyone outside my current circle, and my dog, non-existent. Hatred toward my ex and her new life, surprisingly, not there. All I could do was just laugh a little at the snap on my phone. She left me, she hurt me, but she did not destroy me. We're now 2 different people with 2 different lives and I must move forward for the ones I owe it to. Other than the connection of our kids and some immediate family, we have no more connections, and I really have no interest in acting like I was in my 20s in my 40s and spending half my paycheck on liquor because it's Tuesday and New Year's Eve. Maybe I'm just boring, but I can and only want to focus on my kids and ensure that their lives and future is the best that I can provide. Ensure the people and projects I oversee stay afloat and going in this economy. And last, but not least, make sure both my mother and ex-MIL are taken care of in the future moving forward. Advice from what I learned. To any men going through a similar situation, don't lose hope. Remember, actions, records, and solid proof will always speak louder than words. It's a tough road, but no one has to walk it alone. Plan ahead, prepare yourself, seek reputable legal advice, and when the time comes, follow through. As difficult as it may be, stay focused, remain objective, and most importantly, keep your word to your kids. And to the women, stay off social media and stop comparing your life to others. Just kidding. That advice applies to everyone, no matter how you identify. I don't think I'll be posting any more updates, but I'll keep this alt account for my Reddit pen pals. Feel free to say hi, new friends are always welcome.